Welcome to Leadership Reimagined on True Chat, where game-changing conversations are reshaping the world of work. Here's your host, Janice Ellig.
Thank you for joining me today. I am so delighted to be speaking with Susan Story, President and CEO of American Waterworks, on the topic of the key to winning talent is culture. American Waterworks dates back to 1886 and is the largest and most geographically diverse publicly traded water and wastewater utility in the U.S. Susan leads American Water's team of 7,100 professionals who provide service to more than 15 million people in 46 states and Ontario, Canada. She serves also as the independent lead director for Raymond James Financial, board director of Dominion Resources, and on the board of Moffitt Cancer Center and Research Institute Board of Advisors. Welcome to the show, Susan.
Janice, thank you. It's wonderful to be here with you.
And I wanted to start our conversation by congratulating you and American Water for being honored with the 2019 Muriel Siebert Award from the Women's Forum of New York. And you're going to receive this award before an audience of your peers, over 650 men and women executives at the Breakfast of Corporate Champions. And you're being recognized not only for your leadership in achieving gender parity in the American Water boardroom, but also really driving cultural change within the organization on inclusion and diversity. American Water is one of only 26 companies on the S&P 500 with over 50% women on their board. So congratulations, Susan Story and American Water, for what you've been doing.
Janice, thank you so much. And this award means so much to our company for a couple of reasons. One is the amazing legacy of Muriel Siebert. When you think about the First Lady of Finance and you think about the ground she broke and how all of us have so much that we owe her for what she did, it's just extraordinary. And then I think about American Water, my own company, and it's interesting that our company has had a history of groundbreaking moves for women. And in fact, in the 1970s and 1980s, we had more than one woman on our board.
It's remarkable.
It's absolutely incredible. And former Ambassador Marilyn Ware, who passed away last year, her grandfather was one of the leaders in the company in the 1930s and 40s. She actually chaired the company when it was publicly traded in the 1990s for several years. So this award, to think about Mickey Siebert and to think about Marilyn Ware and the four mothers for us and our company is just very exciting for me.
And it sends such a message through to your employees that you're being honored, and you are a female CEO and a female CFO, right? So that's also remarkable.
You know, it's very exciting because I believe in the S&P 500, there are only three companies, American Water and Hershey and General Motors, that have a female CEO and CFO. And the thing that's great is that I actually just recently brought on the second CFO since I've been CEO, and it's the second female. And in both cases, they were the best person for the job.
Let's talk a little bit about your growing up. It was in Albertville, Alabama, right? And did you think about a path to CEO at that time, or what were the drivers for you? What made you get in, and particularly this industry, a utility?
Oh, my goodness. So I was the first person on either side of my family to ever go to college. My dad's parents were alcoholics. He was on the streets at 14. My mom was ninth of 9 kids of a dirt poor farmer in Alabama. So I had no idea what a president of a company was, and I grew up in rural Alabama. But my mom and dad, from the time I was a kid, said, this is the United States and you can be whatever you want to be. My dad is one of the smartest men I've ever known. And from the time when you are told as a child, you can be whatever you want to be. And my dad spent so much time. He loved math and science and those things. So I just feel very amazingly blessed to have the family I had growing up, although we had very little money, but also to be in a place where I had the opportunity to live the American dream.
But you had that advice, that support, that love, which was a big incentive for you to pick that mantle up and run with it, right?
Absolutely. You know, when you hear as a kid and from your dad and your mom,
right,
you can be anything. And to think this was in the 1960s and 70s in rural Alabama. from a father who had to drop out of high school. He went back later and got his GED. I just find it extraordinary.
So you are in an unusual career path for women. There are not too many that hold the CEO title in your industry, although more are coming on. What have been some of the highs and lows of getting into the position you're in today in terms of your advice to other women and opportunities in this sector?
That's a great question. So I'll answer the latter part and then I'll talk about the highs and lows. The advice I would give is number one, and when I tell one of the stories, I think it will be clear, is never give anyone else the power to determine your future. And I'll talk a little bit about something that happened to me early in my career that really brought that home. The other advice I would give is be the very best at what you do, be a team player, be about people, and make sure that you're being true to yourself and that you have the courage to step out of your comfort zone. So the highs and the lows, the very interesting story about one of the highs in my career has been doing hurricane restoration after Hurricane Ivan in Northwest Florida in 2004. I was CEO of a utility, Gulf Power. We had a Category 4 hurricane come through. We had a storm center, and we were in a building that was supposed to be built to withstand hurricane force winds. And yet we had plate glass windows at 1:30 a.m. when the eye came through. There were 40 of us in the center. The plate glass window fell on top of the man who was running logistics. We had some young call center representatives there who were just panicked. And I realized then as a leader, if I am not strong, if I don't hold this together, we don't have a chance. So I had first aid training, so I basically took tweezers in the middle of the night. You can't call any emergency responders because you're in the eye of a hurricane. I picked glass out of the back and forehead of our logistics manager, got everyone into the basement, got everyone calm. And then when about 4 hours later, the storm was through, we went outside and saw the devastation. And I remember getting our team together saying, our job is not to bring the power back on, it's to bring hope back to this community. And Janice, at that point, I realized I could pretty much do anything. So for 6 days, I was the strong one, never showed weakness. After that, I went home and I kind of fell apart for a little bit. But I was in the storm center for 6 days, sleeping on cots with the folks I worked with. And I can look back and say that's one of the most extraordinary experiences of my entire life. So that was a high. The low, and a lot of women, I think, some point in their career went through this. When I was 21 when I graduated college, and I worked for a supervisor who didn't think women should be engineers. I was a nuclear engineer when I started my career. And I find out 2 or 3 years later that he's been taking my name off things, putting his name. I kept getting mediocre performance reviews. And I finally went to him and said, but I've done X, Y, and Z. What do I have to do? And he looked at me and he said, you're doing a great job. There's nothing you need to change, but I saved the high marks for men so I can give them higher bonuses. And and it's hard to believe this was the early 1980s, but here's the turning point. I went to the bathroom. I went into a stall. I cried. And then I came out and I said, you know what? This is about him. It's not the company. This is his problem, and I'm going to show him how wrong he is. And 2 years later, I was promoted and he was demoted.
Well, sometimes those experiences just give you, again, that incentive and drive to say, I can overcome this. I can do this. And of course, it went back to your early upbringing as well. But sometimes those lessons teach us wonderful ways of overcoming adversity and obstacles, right?
And they give us strength and confidence, right? Those things say, if I got through this, I can get through these other things. And I think it helps. I heard in the past that crises doesn't build character, it reveals it. And I think that's true.
Mm-hmm. So that story about taking the glass out of the logistics manager's back and you were in a storm, tell us a little bit more about the mission of American Water, because you guys are there. We take water for granted, but you're there through really some of the worst hurricanes and natural disasters.
Absolutely, Janice. So American Water. So I worked in the power industry for 31 years and I came to water. And the difference is water is critical for life. Mm-hmm. It's not just a service. People ingest it. And our purpose, our mission, and it permeates our entire company is we have to keep life flowing for our customers. So what does that mean in practical terms? At the end of every water pipe, There's a family who gives their child a glass of water and trusts that it's safe. Every fire hydrant, lives are depending that we've done our work and the pressure's there and the volumes are there. And then every wastewater plant is a barrier between our customers and disease. And we also say in the 1,600 communities we serve, they should be stronger because we're there. Those are the things that every one of our employees every day holds close to their heart. And I think there's been so much debate about this issue of corporate purpose. And I've just been shocked. It's been controversial because for American Water, our purpose is everything. It's not a job. It's a calling. It is everything we do. And I've got stories that I can share later about some of the things our employees have done that show that purpose has to permeate to every single person in the company. For those who say that you can't do it all, they're wrong, because having that purpose, having great people, produces the profits. It's not the other way around.
So how do you build this winning team? And this winning team really, then changes the culture, right? And how did you do that? How are you doing that?
There's some fundamentals about people, and you know this well, and your career has been amazingly successful. The first thing is, if the leader is not passionate about what you do, how would you expect anybody else to care? So whatever your job is as a leader, you better love what you do. And if you can't get passionate about it, you need to do something different. So I think it starts with a passion. The second thing is you put the right people in the right jobs and you help them be great. The vast majority of people want to be great at what they do. We've got to find the right positions, invest in training, development, and make sure that people have every opportunity to be developed to their fullest potential. And the third thing is, I think as leaders, you can be a good leader, but you'll never be a great leader unless you truly respect the dignity of every human being just because they're a human being. Now, that doesn't mean you don't do the tough stuff. I've had to do in my career layoffs. I've had to terminate people. I've had to do tough things. But sometimes the how you do it makes all the difference. And you can do, as long as you truly respect and care for every person, people know when you're genuine and they know when you're not. They know when they have leaders that care about you versus leaders that just say a bunch of words. For example, in our company, safety is number one. So why is that a big deal? The fact of the matter is, if people work for a company where they say, I believe in what this company does, and I see them act on that every day, this company wants me to go home safely to my family, and they can say, you know what? We're great at what we do. Wow, isn't that a company everybody wants to work for? So my goal is that's the kind of company, the kind of culture that we want to have at American Water.
Do you know, it's interesting, Susan, because in my work as an executive search recruiter and having had a corporate career before this, it is the leadership at the top, the tone at the top, and the behaviors that my candidates who are executives look at. And they say, who's leading this company? Is there diversity in the company of all types, women, racial, ethnicity, it's so important because people want to go to purpose-driven organizations where there's good character and courage at the top and a commitment to what you're doing. So you're doing that. How do you filter that down, though, to line managers at the lowest possible level so it really cascades down the organization?
Well, you have to, first of all, we all have criteria that we select leaders all the way to the frontline supervisor. Our criteria it's interesting, our performance plans, the way we judge people's performance every year is 50% the what's of the goals, what you accomplish, and a full 50% is how did you follow our values to do that. And every single employee, that's the way we measure them. Yeah. And when we're putting people in frontline jobs, one of the key things is this person's record on safety. The reason I keep talking about safety, we're in a dangerous role. I mean, our folks are out repairing main breaks in the middle of the night in icy weather. They have to go in people's homes and do things. It's very dangerous work. So if people know you care about them, you want them to be safe. We are a very cost-efficient company, but there's one area of our company that if somebody says they need something, we never question and they get it. If someone says, I need this piece of equipment, these gloves, these goggles, fill in the blank to do my job safely, they get it. And we're about 50% union represented. You can go to one of our communities around the entire country and ask someone, is there something you need to do your job safely that you don't have? And because I do this, I go out on the front lines and I spend time on the front lines with our employees. And if they ever say, no, I don't get it, that is immediately remedied. I'm proud that in the last 1 to 2 years, when I asked that question, I have yet to have someone say, no, I'm not getting what I need to do my job safely. That sends a message. You really do care about me. So when you talk about customer service, I can believe you because I can believe you in how you deal with me.
That's a very good point, because I think if you treat your employees the right way, then they always will treat customers the right way, because it's just, they know that you really care. And so they're going to do everything they can to be successful for you.
And Janice, if I could, that what you said is so powerful. And I want to give you a couple of examples. So just this year, some of our frontline employees. So we had a gentleman in Pennsylvania, mechanic expert, his field service rep, and he said he just thought he heard something, and he looked, and there was an elderly woman who had gone to her mailbox, and she had fallen, and her walker had moved away, and she had been lying in the street about 10 minutes. So he went, he picked her up, he took her home, he called her son, and it turned out she had broken her hip. She was very scared. And he sat there and he showed her pictures of his 8-month-old daughter to calm her down. And when her son came, he called an ambulance for her. We had another one of our people in Tennessee who had his shirt, his Tennessee American Water shirt, was in a Walmart after work. And this young man was 16 and had told this cashier, I worked all summer to help my mom pay for my supplies. So he said, I want to buy these for you. We had another person in Iowa who saw a nun shoveling snow off the church sidewalk. He stopped and helped her. And I have so many of those stories. So two things. One is, these are good. You don't teach that. You have people who believe that, but every one of these times, these folks didn't worry they would get in trouble for stopping their normal job and helping a customer, that they knew that would be celebrated. And that's where you see the cultural differences.
I love these stories. I love them. So thank you, Susan. I want to do a quick reminder with our audience. You are listening to The Key to Winning Talent is Culture with Susan Story, President and CEO of American Waterworks Company. The topics we cover, like today's, are all current, and a new topic with a new game changer is released on the third Thursday of every month. This is a great way to stay current on relevant issues happening around us and to learn about things that we would not know otherwise from great leaders like Susan's story. So let's return now back to what you're talking about. You're in 46 states, delivering services to clients. And you talk about people being on the front line for their customers and going the extra mile. And they're never questioned for doing that, right? You've actually given them that authority, that responsibility, but the license to go ahead and do it. And so is this throughout the entire company that people feel this and know they can do it?
Well, I can name examples from every state. I mentioned several states earlier. And then also in West Virginia, we had 3 men who actually saw an elderly gentleman hit a child on a bicycle and basically saved the child, called EMS, and then because the child was worried about destroying his bike, pulled their money and went and bought a bicycle. I can take every one of our states and I can tell you stories of amazing things our employees have done. So here's the thing for the leader. You know what? My biggest thing is, how can I deserve to lead these folks? I mean, they're so amazing, and that builds on each other. And it's just this amazing, motivating thing that says what I do matters. I come to work and I feel appreciated and respected. And there are study after study. University of Michigan has done studies that have shown where employees are engaged, customer satisfaction numbers are out the roof. It's the right thing to do, but Janice, it's also great business to do it.
Well, I've always said, if you put employees first, then customers come first, communities come first, and then shareholders, right? So
Absolutely.
It's like really in that order. But you are an unusual organization because you got, they're going all round the clock, aren't they? 365 days a year. And how do you keep that momentum going in terms of it through storms and the hours that they do, and over 7,000 employees? So how do they continue to work at this level and dedication? It's amazing.
Well, Janice, I'm going to go back with all of the discussion and controversy around this issue of purpose. It just comes back to purpose. Our employees believe in what we're doing. We're actually not having a problem recruiting younger people to come into our company, recent college grads, because they love the sustainable nature of what we do. They love the technology that we're doing, and they love the type of culture we have and what we do. But the thing that really, I think, pushes it out there is when you think about the purpose, I'll give you an example. So it is November the 7th, and there were tremendous fires, as we all know, in California over the past 3 to 4 weeks. So we have a couple of smaller operations in Sonoma County. We planned for the rolling blackouts, power outages, and literally we kept water services during the entire time of the fires in October and November in the areas we served in California. And then when some of our areas were under mandatory evacuation, we actually monitored them remotely. Our employees were amazing. Superstorm Sandy, when it hit the Northeast in 2012, when there was flooding, oh my gosh, this past winter, there was flooding in Iowa and in Illinois. We had plants that were taken out of service and employees that worked to keep the water going because they say, these are my neighbors. These are my families. We're very local. Our employees live in these communities, and they say it as, I'm providing a critical service to the people I care about in the place I live. And that's something very special. People, I've heard, in the past, you hear people either get behind a common vision or a common enemy. It's way better to be a common vision. Right. And we have that at American Water.
Yeah. Your job just seems so challenging. And you say, you're out there, you're on the front line, you're helping somebody who's injured, you're there at the storms, and so how do you manage all of those challenges that you're faced? I mean, these are natural disasters that could happen any time.
Right.
It doesn't take a break during the holidays. In fact, sometimes it's worse. So what are some of the major challenges that you have found in this role? I know you have great people, but there must be things that really keep you up at night.
There are, and I'll talk about those in a couple of things we do. So interestingly, globally, there are 144 million registered chemicals in the world. Every 2.5 seconds, they're breaking down, forming new substances. 1,400 microbes, parasites, bacteria, viruses that can affect drinking water. The EPA regulates about 100. We have an R&D organization where we have 3 or 4 people. All they do is work on emerging contaminants because the nature of our job is to make sure that our customers are safe, that the water they drink is safe. So this issue of water contamination is always top of mind. Second, and somewhat related, is the issue of cybersecurity. You never want there to be an event with a contamination event from a cyber standpoint. So those are things that we're always working on. And then you mentioned natural disasters. Every year, we started 10 years ago identifying the most critical assets that affect most of our customers, and we're hardening them. I mean, we've had 6 100-year floods in the last 10 years in the Northeast. We're having to build our systems, our plants. We're having to build them for resiliency due to climate variability, but we're doing it before there's a problem. I'll give you one quick example. In Iowa this year, record flooding in Davenport, Iowa. In 2013, we finished building a 2,250-foot flood wall. Had we not built that, the entire water treatment plant that serves hundreds of thousands of people would have been out of service for who knows how long. But because we did that upfront work, because we're looking forward and with customers at the center of everything we do, we didn't have that situation.
So you and your board and your senior team are always looking around the corner, I think, right? In terms of what could happen and what should we do that would be preventative?
Absolutely. You have to plan.
That's a prime example.
You hope for the best, but you plan for the worst.
Right.
And we are very fortunate to have regulators who are very supportive of us doing this, especially with all of the extreme weather events. We had documented just in 2019 in our service areas, we've had 13 extreme weather events. Extreme weather events, flooding, ice storms, hurricanes, tropical storms. That's extraordinary. And for something as critical as water and sanitation services, you can't hope that you're not affected. You plan that you will be affected and that you're going to be able to make it through those disasters.
Yes. And when you read sometimes that, the water level on the coast, East Coast and Florida and whatever, are going to go up and Venice is sinking and all these things that are happening globally, right?
Right.
And climate change, it's only probably going to get worse.
Absolutely. And that's why our scientists work with international foundations looking at things like not just how you treat surface water and groundwater, but we also do desalination. We do recycling and reuse. We recycle 3.5 billion gallons of water a year to reuse. So we want to make sure that we're good stewards of the planet, and we need to make sure there's water supply for generations to come. And we take that very seriously as part of our jobs.
So I want to talk a little bit about boards, because you've been getting this Muriel Siebert Award for your board and your leadership in D&I. You were once quoted saying, whether it's in executive management or it's in boards, is that once you obtain gender parity, it's not hard to stay there. And so I would look at that and say, it's not a gender agenda. It's a business imperative agenda.
Absolutely. Janice, you're absolutely correct, because our board is 55% women. Our executive team for the entire executive team is over 40% women. But what we found on the board, and 3 of our 4 board committees are chaired by women, is that when we're adding new board members, because I'll say our the old term Rolodex, the contacts that our folks have, who they know when they use search firms like yours and others, that you basically say, here's the kind of person I'm looking for. And it's casting a wider net. People say, well, how can you really find your second consecutive CFO of a $22.5 billion company? You look more broadly. And the people are there. And what I find is when you've got different voices around the table, people make sure you don't forget things. They make sure you're looking around every corner. They make sure that you leave no stone unturned. And when you get those pools of people, you're going to find great people who represent our customers. And that's what it's really all about, is how do you think you can understand your customers if you don't have people that even represent them?
Can you share a story about a woman from Colombia that you have at your company? Because I find this very interesting, and I think our audience would like to hear about it.
Oh, absolutely. So Angelita Fasnacht is just a fascinating woman. She is a scientist in our research and development organization, but she did not get to this position in a standard way that most people would think of. She was born in Colombia and a civil engineer. And at 28, she was named head of a water organization. And their job was to go into the jungles to be able to help women and children be able to have fresh water without having to walk miles a day to bring water into the village. And Angelita and her organization in 2 years brought fresh water on site to 50,000 people. But the terrorist group FARC was very threatened by this because the village women and children would have to pay protection money to them as they walked to the sources of water and back. So they kidnapped Angelita and they kept her in captivity for 32 days. And they finally told her, we will only set you free and not kill you or your family if you leave this country and never come back. So with $2,500 and not speaking English, she came to the United States. She came through Atlanta, met her husband who was from New Jersey, came up to New Jersey. When she first started working with us, I was at a holiday party and I was listening to her story. And I said, Angelita, why did you choose American Water? She said, I looked for a company that I would be interested in, and I saw that there was a female CEO, and I knew this is where I wanted to come. Angelita, since that time now, earned her PhD, 4 wonderful children, and we also support her, and she is still very actively involved in international clean water efforts. And those are the kind of people that we have working at American Water.
Oh my God, what a story. That's amazing. I would love to meet her someday.
I'd love for you to meet her.
She's going to go far. Yeah. You have built such a wonderful culture. You have so many great stories about being a purpose-driven organization and how your people take charge and they make things happen. What's your advice to other CEOs in terms of them changing their cultures? And what are some of the 2 or 3 things that you'd say would be really important to keep in mind?
Janice, I heard a term a few years ago that talked about the generosity of the and the tyranny of the or. And we always want to say it's going to be this or this or this. And I want to go back to the controversy around corporate purpose. And today where you hear so much negativity about free enterprise and capitalism. And here's what I would tell business leaders and future business leaders. It is about purpose, and it is about people, and it is about communities. It's also about profits. And I believe in my heart that when free enterprise is at its best, we can bring those things together better than anybody or anything that exists in this country today.
Would you like to run for president?
No, thank you. I love American Water.
So any parting words? We've learned so much from you today, but any parting words?
I think it's just what I just said about the love of the free enterprise system and what we do. I really and truly believe that the profits and the financial performance come from doing everything else right. And, the last 5 years, the total shareholder return of American Water has been 186% compared to 67% for the S&P 500. So you can do well by doing good.
I totally agree. And I think I have a list of great candidates that I want to introduce to you because I think they would love working at American Water.
Thank you, Janice.
Susan Story, thank you for so many great insights on the key to winning talent is culture. You've built a great culture at your company. And I do believe that will attract more people for you, great talent, because there is a war on for talent today. There really is. So thanks to our audience for tuning in to this remarkable conversation with Susan Story. You can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or visit our website at ellengroup.com. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes of Leadership Reimagined, Game-Changing Conversations.